Hi, Charles Moman here. Well, welcome to part 3 of a 3-part seminar that Timmy Burris and I did recently at the 2020 Homecoming Rally. Thanks for watching. What I'm going to do in this video is give you my presentation I did at the seminar. Timmy did his part with showing his camper and the inside of it, and then a separate talk about solar in general with a little bit of overlap. And so I had to record him there, but I did not do it in the actual live seminar. It's just a lot easier to do that. And I thought I'd wait till I got home before I would record my part. And so my role in this seminar was to talk about portable power that did not involve a big installation. Said things like this: the Jackery 160 or the 500 or the Line Energy Safari LT, and there are other brands out there. More of a plug and play solution to power needs. You know, it's funny, I was talking to my wife a while ago and I said, boy, remember back when the kids were little, we have 6 kids, and we remember going camping, and back then, didn't have cell phones, we threw ice in a cooler, clothes, and a couple of tents, and off we went. So we didn't have power needs, we didn't even think about that, except maybe batteries for a flashlight. That would be just about it. But things have changed a lot, haven't they? So with our Runaway Camper, and whatever kind of camper that you have, portable power in one way or another is almost a need now. And so that's what I'll be talking about in my part of the seminar. In preparing for this seminar, I ran a couple of informal polls on a couple of the Runaway Camper owner Facebook pages, and I found out, just like I think it's true of a lot of campers, most campers are fair weather campers, nothing wrong with that. Sometimes people just have limited amount of time, if they're not retired, to camp, so they're fair weather campers. And most of the time, in the polls show that 75% or higher of the time, people are camping with shore power. They do have the occasional time where they're in between destinations, like my wife and I, and their portable power would be very, very necessary. So that was a big part of me sort of configuring this talk. And I right off the bat said, you know, I want to burst any bubbles, but one of the first things everyone asks is, can I run the air conditioner? And if you watched Timmy's, and I hope you have watched his part of the seminar, he showed that he can run the air conditioner occasionally at a night in between destinations with his solar system. But to be able to run it 24/7 because you're in the middle of Utah or Arizona in the summer, it's just not going to happen with that kind of system. It's more for the occasional use where you have time to get your batteries recharged and there's enough sun, which sometimes there's not. So there's always that issue. And so I tell people, if you're planning on getting lithium batteries like what I'm talking about, that's just simply not going to work for running AC, but it certainly will run a lot of things. And so what Timmy and I also both agreed about is, before you think about what am I going to do, what am I going to buy, you need to think about what are your needs and what are your wants. And so going through and thinking, what do I really need to be able to charge or run while I'm out camping? And most people would say, you know, a cell phone is essential for most people. A lot of people have a tablet. My wife and I would not travel without each of us bringing our own laptop. And for some people, a simple power bank can do that. I'll show you a picture of a Max Oak 99 watt, and this actually has an AC outlet in it, which is kind of unusual. And you can even take that on an airplane. It has to be under 160 watts. And so it's a 99, and you can actually charge or run your laptop with that. And so a lot of people have found the small power banks will get them through. What a lot of people want to be able to do is, if they're in between places, they want to be able to run lights in their camper, maybe a small fan, and some other devices, maybe an electric blanket or a heated blanket, or we use a heated mattress pad, and I'll talk about what we use later on. And also very important to a lot of people is running a CPAP machine. A lot of people need them, and I don't know a lot about them, but I do know that how you use it will make a big determination about the size of the battery that you need. If you have to run the heater and the humidifier, it's going to use a whole lot more power. But if you can get by without those, you're golden with, say, a 250 on up to a 500. You could go several days without even recharging. And also people want to run a refrigerator, a 12-volt refrigerator or freezer, and we just recently got the IceCo Go 20, and it will run for a long time on either one of these batteries. We were very, very impressed. And then some people will find out when they put together their list of needs, they may find out that maybe a Honda generator, we've got a Honda 2000, and we actually don't bring it with us anymore, but we still use it here at home in emergencies and other situations. It's an inverter, so it's pretty quiet, but we found that when we were at Capitol Reef National Park in Utah or Rocky Mountain National Park in Estes, that you can't run a generator all the time. There isn't shore power there either. And so you're limited. You can run it, I believe it was like 8 to 10 in the morning and maybe 4 to 6 or 6 to 8, something like that. 2 hours twice a day you could run a generator to charge up some batteries. And other than that, you can't run them. So some kind of solution is needed by people. And that's what these batteries or the solar outfit that Timmy talks about can be very, very useful. Well, let's get to the heart of my talk, and let me talk about what are now referred to as lithium solar generators, and they're a plug-and-play answer for many people. And I think that the term solar generator is confusing to people. I've actually had people on my YouTube channel watch one of my reviews of a Jackery or a Lion, and they'll say, how much gas does it use? And it's a little confusing. I saw someone said maybe they should call them solar accumulators, because they are called solar generators because they can take in power via a solar panel, and I've got a solar panel that the Solar Saga 100 that I use with my Jackeries, and it can bring power in. And so that's really why they're called that, but I can see why it's a little confusing with people. In Timmy's talk, he talked about how typically when you're in a conversation about lithium batteries, whether it's in conjunction with a solar system like he's got installed or a plug and play like what I'm talking about, it averages out about $1 per watt. So a Jackery 240 is around $2.50. The Jackery 500 is $4.99. Now and then you can catch it on sale. And they're getting ready to release the Jackery 1000. I'm hoping they'll be sending me one so I can do a review on that. And so that's going to be, I saw the list price is $999, so $1,000. And so it's very, very typical. But when you consider what's in them, it's really a pretty good bargain, especially when you're talking, especially the 500 watt size, because they have everything in them. Timmy showed you a charge controller and an inverter and the USB ports, and guess what? That's all in here. And they're all different. This one does not have the cigarette plug-in. It has an adapter that you plug in. The 500 has that plugged in. The 1000 will. This one's got one AC outlet. It's got USB ports, and then where you can plug in a solar panel. And the bigger the units, the more places to plug in. And so these lithium batteries really are pretty good bang for their buck because they have everything in them. You don't have to think about what will work with this because it's all inside that box. And it's just a great idea. So what can they run? Well, as I keep referring to Timmy, but we really converged a lot in our talks, is you must do the math. And so what you have to do is, instead of posting a bunch of questions to me on this video, look and see the device you're talking, whatever it is, whether it's a heated mattress pad or a fan, how much power will it use? And you'll find that to get the most bang for your buck, you want to be running with a lithium battery as many things as possible that are actually 12 volt that plug into the cigarette lighter outlet. They use the least amount of energy. Next would be USB, and then if you're plugging in, just like you're plugging into your house, it's actually eating up some battery power. As soon as you turn that inverter on, and most of them have a button you turn for each part of the battery, as soon as you turn it on, it's immediately using power, just running the inverter. Then you plug in your device, whether it's a fan or whatever, a laptop, and on top of that, what we would call overhead, now you've got your usage of that device. So it's eating up more if you're not using 12 volt. And sometimes you don't have a choice. You got to do what you got to do. But as much as possible, you want to be running 12 volts. So a 500 watt can easily run LED lights, small fans, a TV, recharge devices, and a refrigerator. Let's talk about next about recharging these batteries. And so I'm not really getting super detailed about each battery because I've got other videos about these lithiums, and you can find plenty of others on YouTube as well. In a minute, I'm going to tell you what Susie and I actually run with the solar generators that we have. But let's talk about recharging them because that's really essential to know. And so you can recharge most of them with a 12 volt cigarette lighter outlet. You can plug it in. Now and then you'll run across one that cannot do that, but you have a way around that. You can buy an inverter, and you can get them as cheap as 20 on up. And I'll put one in the link below that I've heard is really great. It's about $35. And you plug that into your cigarette lighter, and it's got an AC outlet, so then you could charge your solar generator that way. But most of the time, I just plug mine into one of the cigarette outlets in the front or in the back of the van, and it's charging when we're driving around. But typically, what you want to be able to do is not allow these lithium solar generators to run down more than 80%. So you want to try to not, when you look at the screen, it'll say how much is left. Most of them have really good LCD displays, and you don't want it to go below 20% if at all possible. It will not kill it if now and then you run it all the way down. I've done that now and then. You'll see people that do videos about these batteries. They'll run them to zero and then to show how long they take to recharge. But you'll get a lot more life cycles. Most of these batteries, depending on which kind of lithium, you'll get between 1 and 2,000 life cycles, recharge cycles. And what that means is, after 1,000 times you've run it down to say there's 20% or 10% left, 1,000 or 2,000 times, then the capacity will drop. It doesn't mean you can't use it anymore. It may mean that now you can get 80% of that 500 watts or 80% of that 1,000 watt battery that you bought initially. But remember, 1,000 recharges or 2,000, that's going to go a long time. But when you get to that point, the capacity may drop, but you still can use it. So it doesn't mean it's all of a sudden useless. With lead acid batteries, those you may say, well, I've got 100 watt, but you only can use half of that because you really cannot let those things get much below 50% or it just kills them on their life cycle, how long they will last. And so typically with these batteries, depending on how big they are, it can take 7.5 hours. I think that's, and I'll post some graphics up here, but quite typically it can take up to 7.5 hours or more depending on the size. If it's this 160 I've got, it will charge up much faster. But the Lion Safari LT that I recently did a review of, it's got a fast charger, and boy, that bad boy can charge 2 to 3 times faster than most other solar generators. So it's very, very impressive. So that's something to consider when you're looking at batteries. Do they have a fast charger that comes with it? If you're going to recharge it with a generator, it's going to be about the same, about 7.5 hours. I think that number is would be applying to probably a 500 watt. With a car 12 volt outlet, if you let it really go down, I mean, it can take 12, 14, 16 hours unless you use an inverter, and it will go much faster. And if you use solar panels, like say for example that Solar Saga 100 from Jackery that I have, with solid prime bright sun, keep it angled right and turned 12 to 14 hours. If you can daisy chain those and bump that recharge time up quite a bit. So that's something you have to consider with them is, yeah, I can run a lot of things with it, but you have to remember tomorrow or somehow during the next day, I've got to get that charged if I want to keep using it like I did last night or yesterday. And so that's a consideration when you're thinking about what can I run and how often can I run it. And so recharging is an important issue. So you need to check that when you're looking at which solar generator to buy. I was watching what I just filmed, and those numbers were scary when you're talking 8, 10, 12, 14 hours. But that's if you really let the battery go way down and it's a pretty good size 500 watt battery. When we use ours, typically, especially if we're running that 12 volt refrigerator, it is not eating up that much at night. If we are someplace where we don't have power, say for example, we're between this place and that place and we stop at a Cracker Barrel, for example, and I want to keep that refrigerator running, I'll just plug in the 160 or the 500 Jackery, and yeah, I'll use some power, but it's amazing how little it really does use. So typically, I don't let mine get down below 50%, so I'm not taking that many hours to recharge it when I plug it into my 12 volt. I also have the advantage of having two, 160 and a 500, so I can go back and forth, and so if I don't need the 500, I'm not running it. I'll do as much as I can with that 160. So what do the Momans run? So I'm going to go through a list here and I'll start popping up some pictures. So if we are stopped, say for example at a Cracker Barrel, we might want to run our interior LED lights. And so we have a strip that we bought for like around $40, and it runs around the entire interior of our camper, and actually runs with AC. I could probably make it a 12 volt, and I might eventually do that, but so far it's not really been necessary because LED lights are using so little power, so it's not a problem. We have an ARB awning, and the new one has this LED strip that runs in the middle of it, and that one definitely you plug into the 12 volt cigarette output of a Jackery or Lion Energy or whatever lithium battery you've got, and it runs that, and it's pretty bright. It's amazing. So we've got that Iceco Go 20 refrigerator and freezer. And so we're plugging that in. When we're running it, I'm actually not using a battery. When we're driving, I mean, when we're going from here to there, it's plugged into one of the outlets in the car. So I'm not using a battery. Definitely don't use it if you don't need to. And so I have it so if we get out and we stop somewhere to eat or go into the store to get groceries, I'll immediately plug it into one of the lithium batteries to keep it running. We also have used a heated mattress pad. It's 12 volt, and wow, it about ran us out. We really had to turn it down. So the Jackeries had no trouble running that. At that time, I didn't have the Lion, but it would run it just as well. So the heated mattress pad is great for simple fans, and they have 12. Almost everything you can find a fan, you can find a USB version and a 12 volt. We use a Skyroam hotspot, so I will have that plugged into one of the lithiums to keep it charged up. We have just a warming blanket, a 12 volt blanket. We're of course recharging a Kindle. We're running recharging the laptops at night, and sometimes I might bring like a 24-inch computer monitor, and that would plug into the AC outlet if I'm doing some editing and we're out. Typically, I would be doing that at a campsite with power, but if I was someplace or I just wanted to go outside, I could take the battery out on the picnic table and run it that way. It's really very handy. I'm right now using a Shure wireless system, and so I can be outside and plug it into one of the lithium batteries, and so I get sound because I'm running my microphone. I've got my wireless pack here, and then the unit that I'm showing you right now, I've got a cord running from that into my Nikon D750. So instead of having a boom mic on top, I'm using this mic and getting a much better sound. And as I mentioned before, I'm not letting it run below 50%. Cold weather can affect it, so you need to be aware that when it gets down to freezing, you really don't want to have that outside. You want to keep it in your camper or keep it in your car and keep it warm, because at some point it won't want to recharge when it gets very cold. So just keep it warm and you'll be okay. There's also something we bought. We haven't actually used it. It's made by Hot Logic. You may have seen it on Facebook, but it's a 12 volt warming unit, and so you can use a plastic or glass Pyrex in there and you can heat up food. Actually, it can cook food. They have various sizes, and so you can plug that into the battery or a cigarette lighter while you're driving. But if you get someplace and you're out hiking, you could plug that in your camper and you're off. You don't have any power maybe, but you could plug that Hot Logic cooking warming unit into the cigarette lighter on one of your lithium batteries, and you're good that way. So the list just goes on and on. I charge my camera batteries, and there's just, as I say, a plethora of things that you can keep charged up with these batteries. Very, very useful, but the most important thing is you just have to find out how much power they use, and then you do the math dividing into how much power you've got in that unit, whether it's a 140 or a 260 or a 500 or whatever it is, and see how much you're going to get use out of that device with that battery. Well, there you go. This has lasted just about as long as the seminar I did down in Summerfield, but I had a lot to tell you, and I hope you find it helpful. I think that these lithium solar generator batteries are a bargain because they've got everything in them. They're plug and play. I just do not want to go to the level of installing all those parts and figuring it all out when I have some pretty basic needs, and these batteries that are plug and play do everything that I need. So do your own research. I'm thinking that as time goes on, those prices are going to drop, and I think that for many of you, it's the answer for what you need. And if at all possible, I would really suggest that you get a 500 watt or bigger, because then you're going to be able to run so many things and not run out of power, and really get, as I say, good bang for your buck. And good luck with your shopping, and thanks for watching.